during a family dinner at my parents' house, I received a text message from an unknown number. The message was stark and commanding. Get up and leave now. Don't say anything to your parents. I made the decision to follow the instructions in that text. And that is precisely how I discovered the truth about everything. The very next day, just 24 hours later, the police were standing at their front door, knocking with purpose and authority. What strikes me as particularly strange, even now when I look back on it, is just how utterly ordinary and mundane everything felt in those moments, right before it all came crashing down and unraveled completely. I hadn't walked into that house expecting warmth, affection, hugs, or anything remotely emotional from my family. But I most certainly wasn't prepared or braced for what actually transpired and unfolded before my eyes that evening. It was something that, when I reflect on it now with the benefit of hindsight, feels like the most dangerous and insidious kind of trap imaginable. When life appears completely normal and unremarkable on the surface, that's exactly when you allow your guard to drop. That's precisely the moment when danger catches you entirely off guard, when you're most vulnerable. I walked through the front door and stepped inside, and my mom immediately called out to me from the kitchen, her voice bright and cheerful. "We're just about to eat dinner. Come on in. Come in and join us." Her tone was light and welcoming, as if I had simply arrived a bit late to some cheerful, pleasant family gathering. Nothing seemed amiss in her demeanor. My dad rose from his seat at the dining table when I entered the dining room, but he moved a beat too slowly, with a certain hesitation in his movements, like he was uncertain and unsure whether we were doing hugs now, or if we were sticking to our usual polite nods and minimal physical contact. We nodded at each other. Of course we did. My sister was already seated at the table, lazily scrolling through her phone with that perfected and practiced teenage disinterest and indifference she still carried around with her like a shield. She glanced up from her screen just long enough to acknowledge my presence and my arrival, then promptly returned her attention to her phone, offering only the bare minimum amount of attention that was socially required of her. That behavior didn't bother me or hurt my feelings. I wasn't there to win anyone over or to forge deeper connections. The dining table was neatly and carefully arranged, everything in its proper place. My seat had already been pulled out for me, waiting for my arrival. A glass sat at my designated place at the table, already filled with cranberry juice, just like it always had been in the past. It wasn't spiked with any holiday flair or festive touch. It wasn't cute or carefully curated for presentation. It was just plain, simple juice, the exact kind I used to enjoy drinking years ago. My mom gave me a smile that felt manufactured and performed, like part of an elaborate charade, as if all of us were pretending at closeness and familial warmth that didn't actually exist. "You still like cranberry juice, right?" she asked me, her voice hopeful. I nodded in response. The truth was I hadn't touched the stuff in several months, but this moment, right now, wasn't the appropriate time to open up that particular discussion or to correct her assumptions about my current preferences. We all sat down at the table together. They served the meal, bringing out the various dishes. It was basic, straightforward fare, nothing fancy or complicated. There was chicken, potatoes, and some kind of green beans on the side. My dad still pretended to enjoy the green beans. Though we all knew better, we all understood the truth that he had never really liked them. The conversation around the table remained breezy, light, and superficial, touching only on safe, mundane topics. "How's work going? Are you still living in the same apartment? Traffic's been absolutely awful lately, hasn't it?" The usual small talk that fills awkward family dinners. I responded to their questions dutifully. I smiled when it seemed appropriate. I even chuckled and laughed when my sister brought up an amusing anecdote about a co-worker who somehow got stuck in the revolving doors at her office building. I laughed not because the story was genuinely funny or entertaining, but because I knew instinctively how to play my assigned part in this family dynamic. I was the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who didn't stir the pot or cause unnecessary drama or conflict. midway through my dad's familiar and well-worn rant about the ongoing road construction projects in our area, a complaint I'd heard countless times before, my phone buzzed and vibrated in my lap, signaling an incoming message. Without giving it much thought or consideration, I checked the notification discreetly beneath the table, keeping the phone hidden from view. The message I saw was brief and to the point. There was no name attached to it, no identifying information, no emojis or casual punctuation marks, just stark sentences ending in firm, decisive periods like someone who is desperately trying to sound calm and composed while delivering urgent information. Get up and leave now. Don't say anything to your parents. I stared at the words on my screen, then read them again, more carefully this time, making sure I hadn't misunderstood. The room continued to move on around me, oblivious to what I was reading. My mom was nodding along politely to whatever mundane topic my dad was going on about that moment. My sister was chewing her food, methodically. All of it was playing out exactly like a normal, ordinary family dinner, completely unremarkable. And yet here I was, being told explicitly to leave the house. As though the house, this familiar space, had suddenly and inexplicably turned into some kind of danger zone, a threat. I didn't move from my seat. Not right away, at least. A dozen different possible explanations flashed rapidly through my head in quick succession. Maybe it was just a prank, someone messing with me. Maybe it was a misdial, a message intended for someone else entirely. Maybe it was a scam, some elaborate phishing attempt. Or perhaps it was the setup for some bizarre social experiment that I hadn't agreed to participate in. But deep down in my gut, I knew with certainty it wasn't any of those relatively harmless possibilities. Somehow, on some instinctive level, I just knew this was real and serious. "I'll be right back," I said aloud, sliding my chair back from the table and standing up. "Just need to use the bathroom real quick." It was a simple, believable excuse. No one questioned it or asked any follow-up questions. No one even bothered to look up from their plates or pause their conversations. I took my phone with me and walked upstairs, climbing the steps deliberately, because the upstairs bathroom had a door that closed completely and securely all the way and locked without jamming or getting stuck. And because if anyone was going to have a private, potentially important conversation in this particular house, it wasn't going to happen on the first floor where voices carried and privacy was impossible to maintain. I locked the bathroom door behind me, sat down carefully on the edge of the bathtub, and stared at the mysterious message on my screen again, rereading it once more. Then, making a decision, I hit the call button, dialing back the number that had sent me the warning. It rang just once, then I heard a voice answer. "You're still there?" The voice asked immediately with obvious concern. "Who is this?" I demanded, keeping my voice low. "It's Mark." Mark. My sister's boyfriend. Or was he her ex-boyfriend now? It was honestly hard to keep up with the status of their on-again, off-again relationship. What the hell is going on? I asked him urgently. His voice was low and tight, strained, like he was standing somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. Somewhere he might be overheard. "You need to leave that house. Just get up from that table. Walk out the front door. Don't drink anything they've given you. Just go. Please, don't drink the juice." My mouth went dry instantly. I realized I hadn't touched the cranberry juice yet. Not even a single sip. "Why?" I asked him, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you telling me this?" "I can't explain right now. Just trust me, please," he said urgently. "What is this?" I pressed him. "Why are you even calling me? What's going on that I don't know about?" He hesitated for a long moment, and I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. "Please, just get out of there as quickly as you can. Right now." "Not until you tell me why," I said firmly, refusing to move without an explanation. "I'm not leaving until you explain what's happening." He said something then, something that changed everything. Words that I won't forget. I didn't respond immediately after that. I simply sat there on the edge of the bathtub for a while after the call ended, after Mark had hung up. I sat there long enough to feel the penetrating cold from the bathroom tiles seeping through my clothes and into my body, long enough to fully process what I had just been told, long enough to know that I had a significant choice to make and that, truthfully, I had already made it in my heart. Quick note: this story is copyrighted by the YouTube channel Revenge with Claire. Reposting this content, revoicing it, or tweaking and modifying it without explicit permission is still considered copyright infringement under the law. Thank you for respecting original creative work and intellectual property. Now back to the story. Being the older sister in my family didn't come with any kind of ceremony or formal recognition. Just responsibility. Quiet responsibility assumed automatically and seemingly endless. My sister and I were 3 years apart in age, just enough of a gap to create a certain dynamic. When we were kids growing up, our parents gave each of us $5 a week as an allowance. I saved my money carefully and responsibly. She didn't follow the same approach. A few days into the week, she'd have spent her entire allowance on gum or glitter pens or whatever trivial items elementary school's bizarre economy was built on at the time. And then, inevitably, she'd look at me with those pleading eyes. That's when the grown-ups would step in and intervene. She doesn't have any money left. You still do. Don't be selfish with your sister. That's precisely how the pattern started, how it became established. It wasn't presented as a formal rule, just a pattern that emerged and solidified over time. If I was responsible enough to save my allowance, then I was expected to share it when she ran out. If she overspent her allowance, I was automatically expected to fix it and cover the difference. When I reached high school, I got myself a part-time job, working just a couple of weekends at a local pharmacy, earning just enough money to buy my own jeans without having to get into an argument with my parents about it. My sister didn't work at all. She was younger than me, and no one in the family expected her to get a job or earn her own money. But if she wanted anything extra, anything beyond what her parents provided, guess who got nudged and pressured to help out? She really wants to see that movie. She doesn't have her own money yet to pay for it. You do. They still covered the essentials for both of us, the necessities, but anything beyond that, any extras or luxuries, somehow became my problem to solve, my financial responsibility. When I finally left home for college, things calmed down considerably. I was busy with classes and studying, consistently broke from tuition and expenses, and living 2 states away from my family. My sister was still back home in high school, and for a while, it genuinely felt like I'd bought myself some breathing space, some distance from the constant financial demands. Then I graduated from college and managed to land a junior developer job in my field. It came with entry-level pay, basic benefits, and barely enough income to cover my monthly rent and student loan payments. But to my parents, hearing about my new job, it was like I'd hit a windfall, like I was suddenly wealthy and flush with cash. The requests started slowly at first, tentatively. Could you help out with her enrollment deposit for college? Books are so incredibly expensive these days, you know. She's just really stressed about money right now. She had just started college herself, studying something vaguely finance-related, some business degree. She didn't work part-time, didn't budget her expenses, and didn't ask me directly for help. That was always the established pattern in our family. She would ask them for money, and then they would turn around and ask me. And at first, in the beginning, I said yes because I thought that now that I was actually earning a real salary, helping out financially would feel lighter, easier to manage. It didn't feel lighter at all. The more money I made, the more they wanted and expected from me, and not once did any of it feel like it was truly mine to keep. Then there was the issue with alcohol. In my early 20s, I learned the hard way, through some unpleasant experiences, that my body simply doesn't handle alcohol well at all. Half a drink, and I'm completely out of commission. Once, I even blacked out from just 2 small sips of wine at a dinner party. Since then, I've avoided it entirely. Nothing alcoholic passes my lips. Not even champagne at weddings or celebrations. My family always knew about this condition. They were fully aware. But truly accepting it and respecting my boundaries was another matter entirely. Come on, just have a little bit. Don't be such a stick in the mud about it. It's not like you're actually allergic or anything serious. I declined firmly. They'd roll their eyes dramatically, like I was being completely unreasonable and dramatic. But it was never really about the drink itself. It was about how easily and quickly they dismissed my concerns and my needs when it didn't suit them or their plans. A couple of years into my career, I finally landed a mid-level promotion at work. It wasn't groundbreaking or extraordinary, but it was a genuine step forward in my professional life, something I'd worked hard for. I called my parents to share the good news with them, expecting some enthusiasm. My mom's response was immediate. "That's great, honey. So, how much are you earning now exactly?" Then came the follow-up request. "Do you think you could support your sister's semester abroad program? She's so thrilled and excited about the opportunity." No real congratulations on my achievement, no pride in my accomplishment, just the same routine pattern we'd established over the years. Ask for money, expect compliance, move on. So I made a decision and stopped saying yes to their requests. There was no dramatic confrontation, no big speech about drawing boundaries or asserting my independence. I just quietly stopped agreeing to their financial demands. No more, just this once exceptions. No more treating my bank account like some kind of communal family pot that everyone could dip into. Maybe I'd still grab my sister coffee now and then when we met up, small gestures like that, but the role of family sponsor and financial supporter officially retired. And then came the silence in response. No texts, no phone calls checking in. Just that heavy, oppressive quiet that somehow still felt loud and accusatory, like they were deliberately punishing me with their absence for not complying. Weeks passed without any contact. Then, finally, the quiet cracked open. "Your sister needs help. It's serious this time." They floated a specific number, $12,000. $12,000. They absolutely wouldn't explain why she needed it or what it was for, only that she desperately needed it, that I could afford it now with my salary, and that I was her sister, so I had an obligation. I refused outright. They kept pushing harder, applying more pressure, using guilt. So I decided to call her directly myself to get to the truth. And that's when the real truth finally came out into the open. She'd been gambling. She'd lost significant amounts of money. Now, she owed money to people, serious money she couldn't pay back on her own. She was studying finance, building a career in that field. If this gambling problem got out, if people in her industry found out about it, it wouldn't just cost her a job in the short term. It would completely end her career before it really started. "No one hires someone with a gambling record in this field," she explained desperately. "If people find out about this, I'm finished. My career is over before it begins." I asked her directly, "Has this happened before? Is this the first time?" She didn't respond to my question, staying silent on the other end of the line. But I didn't need her to confirm it. The silence told me everything I needed to know. I told her flat out, clearly and firmly, no. Not later. Not partially. Not a payment plan. Just no. "I've been helping you financially for as long as I can remember," I said, my voice steady. "But this situation, this problem, I won't cover it. Not this time. Not ever again, moving forward." She called me cold and heartless, told me I didn't understand what she was going through, that I didn't know what it was like. Maybe she was right about that. Or maybe I finally just didn't want to understand anymore. Didn't want to keep enabling this pattern. After that conversation, they cut me off completely. 3 solid weeks of total silence from the entire family. Then came the slow, tentative drift back toward contact. A forwarded meme from my dad, nothing personal. A picture of the backyard garden from my mom, casual and light. A TikTok video from my sister with no caption attached, and eventually, finally, an invitation. "We're having dinner at the house. Just the family. Hope you'll come join us." No mention of the money situation. No apologies for the pressure or the silence. Just a simple dinner invitation. I convinced myself they'd accepted my decision, that they'd finally come to terms with where I stood and my boundaries. So when they asked me to join them for dinner, I said yes and agreed to come. But something about Mark's voice felt off when I called him back from the bathroom. His voice was subdued, almost emotionless and flat, but there was obvious tension buried underneath the surface. "It's the juice," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think they put something in it. Alcohol, maybe, or something else, something stronger. I'm not entirely sure what. But I think they're planning for you to pass out, to lose consciousness." The room around me was dead quiet as I processed this. White tile floor beneath my feet, the faint whir of a ceiling fan above me, distant clinks of silverware from downstairs where my family continued eating. I didn't respond immediately. Why? I finally asked, my voice shaking slightly. Why would they do that? Another brief, heavy silence on the line. They want to unlock your phone while you're unconscious. Use your fingerprint while you're passed out to access it. I sat there absorbing this information. Then I stood up, walked back downstairs calmly, and picked up the glass of cranberry juice from my place at the table. I tilted it slightly toward the light, examining it, and gave a small, convincing smile to my family. "Tastes exactly like I remember it," I said casually, bringing the glass close to my lips. But I didn't drink a single drop. I just pretended, miming the action. Later, after sitting back down, I asked casually, glancing toward the window, "Was that someone pulling into the driveway just now? Did you guys hear that?" All of them instinctively turned to look toward the front of the house, their attention diverted. That's when I quietly and carefully slid the glass beneath the table, angled it precisely, and let the juice trickle out slowly into the carpet below. Not the whole glass, that would be too obvious, just enough to sell the illusion that I'd been drinking it. It soaked into the carpet fibers, quickly disappearing. "I'm starting to feel weird," I said after a few more minutes, rubbing my forehead. Really tired suddenly. My mom leaned in closer toward me. Her eyes were all softness and manufactured concern, like we were suddenly playing a new game now, a different role. "You okay, sweetheart?" she asked gently. "Yeah," I said, making my voice sound weak. "Just feeling a bit woozy and disoriented. I think I need to lie down for a minute or two." No one hesitated for a second. They helped me to the couch like I was something precious and fragile, like they were caring caretakers and concerned family members, not thieves plotting against me. I lay down carefully on the couch, closed my eyes, and tried desperately not to think about how fast my heart was beating in my chest, how terrified I actually was. Just breathe evenly, slowly, naturally. Don't flinch. Don't give anything away. The couch cushion was warm under my shoulder blade. Someone, probably my mom, draped a soft blanket over my legs gently, and then I heard it begin. "Is she asleep already?" my mom whispered in a hushed voice. "Yeah, she's completely out," my sister confirmed confidently. "Okay," my dad replied quietly. "Let's do this quickly before she wakes up." I heard the sound of my phone being carefully picked up from the table. Then something worse, something that made my stomach turn. I could hear and feel fingers curling around my hand, my thumb being lifted gently but with clear purpose, my skin being pressed deliberately against the phone sensor. A brief pause, then a faint vibration I could feel. Unlocked. There was something quietly horrific about the whole experience. The casual coordination between all three of them. The fact that they didn't hesitate, even for a moment. They just did it without any visible guilt or second thoughts. "Okay," my sister whispered urgently. "We're in. I've got access." More tapping sounds on the phone screen, the sound of numbers being entered into forms. "Routing number," my dad said under his breath, barely audible. "She has everything saved in her banking app. All the information we need." "How much are we doing? How much are we taking?" my mom asked practically. "Not all of it," my dad said, trying to sound reasonable. "Just enough to settle it. Just what we need to cover the debt." Settle what exactly? I kept my breathing steady and even. I kept my eyes closed tightly. I focused on staying completely still. She won't even know what happened, my mom said confidently. If it goes through cleanly, she'll just think she transferred it herself sometime when she was drinking or distracted. She won't remember. I told you this would work, my sister said with satisfaction. She always blacks out after a drink. We just needed her to sleep through it long enough for us to finish. There it was, out loud and undeniable. All three of them working together against me. A tap on the screen, a pause in their activity. It's asking for a code, my sister said, frustration creeping into her voice. A code, my mom echoed, confused. Two-step verification. My sister muttered with annoyance. She must have changed it recently. She added extra security. My dad cursed under his breath, a soft, irritated sigh escaping. Try another app. Try a different banking app. More tapping sounds. Still tapping, trying different options. Same thing everywhere. Everything's locked behind codes now. Everything requires additional verification. They sat in silence for a second, processing their failure. Then my mom said pragmatically, "Just put the phone back where it was. We can't do anything more right now." They did exactly that. No apologies to each other, no second-guessing their actions, no hesitation about what they'd just attempted. I waited patiently, gave them enough space and time to sit back down in their chairs, to reassure themselves that I was still unconscious, that they were safe. Then I slowly opened my eyes, sat up gradually on the couch, and blinked deliberately like someone just waking up from a shallow, unexpected nap. "Sorry about that," I said, my voice slightly groggy. "Don't know what that was. Felt like I blacked out for a second there." They looked at me with expressions I couldn't quite read, like they didn't know what I was anymore, what I represented. "You sure you're okay?" my dad asked, his voice carefully concerned. "Yeah," I said, stretching slightly. "I think I just need some fresh air. Feel a bit stuffy in here." I picked up my phone from where they'd placed it back on the table, held it casually like nothing had happened, like it hadn't just been turned against me as a weapon. "Actually, I think I'm going to head home now," I announced. "I've got work early tomorrow morning. Need to get some rest." They nodded in agreement. No protest from anyone. No awkward offer to walk me out to my car. No insistence that I stay longer. Just a soft, coordinated chorus of polite farewells. "Thanks for coming over tonight. Get home safe. Let us know when you're back." Like we hadn't just crossed a line together that we couldn't possibly come back from. Like everything was completely normal. At the front door, we hugged like we always did at the end of family gatherings. My mom first, then my dad, then my sister, one after another in our usual pattern. It wasn't planned or conscious. It just happened automatically. Habit, family tradition, physical reflex ingrained over years. And as soon as it started, as soon as I felt their arms around me, something cracked inside me. My mom's familiar perfume, my dad's worn jacket, my sister's hand brushing against my arm. All normal things, all familiar sensations, and all of them poison now, tainted forever. I felt it rise in my chest, threatening to overwhelm me. This weight I didn't know how to carry, this grief for something that was ending. This is the last time, I thought to myself. This is the last time I'm hugging them like this. After tonight, after what just happened, we don't come back from this. This is the end. I almost cried right there in the doorway. I didn't let myself, but I came very close. I stepped back from them, smiled like I wasn't breaking open inside, like my heart wasn't shattering. "Thank you for dinner tonight," I said politely, my voice steady. They smiled back at me warmly. I opened the door, walked through it, and I left their house. I didn't tell them what I knew about what they'd done. I didn't ask what they put in the glass of juice. I didn't confront them or say a single accusatory word. But before I walked out of that bathroom earlier that night, before I came back downstairs, I did exactly what they never counted on, what they never anticipated I'd be smart enough to do. I didn't block them from getting into my phone completely. I actually made it easy for them in a way. I left the fingerprint access right where they expected it to be, functioning normally. What I did change, what I modified, was my bank security settings entirely. I added two-factor authentication. Not the easy kind that sends a simple text message, but real, robust verification. Something they couldn't fake or bypass with just my thumbprint. So when they tried to transfer money from my accounts, the banking app would automatically log the attempt in detail, stop the transaction immediately, and leave a clear digital trail of evidence. And then I set up the recording on my phone, not with some obvious red light blinking or visible indicator. If they'd seen that, if they'd noticed anything suspicious, it wouldn't have worked at all. But I know how to run audio recording in the background of a phone. No notifications popping up, no visible apps showing on the screen, nothing to indicate what was happening. That's the part they didn't understand, the part they completely missed. I work in tech professionally. I build systems and security protocols for people who try to outsmart other people for a living. And I knew exactly what they'd overlook, what details they'd miss in their rush. So while they were busy unlocking my phone and attempting to steal from me, they were actually recording themselves doing it, documenting their own crime. Every word they spoke, every attempt they made, all of it captured clearly. They thought I was unconscious on that couch, completely unaware. But the truth is, I was ahead of them strategically before I even came back to the dinner table, before I even took that first fake sip. I drove to the police station afterward like I was going to the grocery store for milk, not driving fast or erratically, not shaking with adrenaline, just steady and calm and purposeful. I parked my car in the lot, walked into the building, and stood patiently in line behind a guy who was asking about parking tickets and fines. And then, when it was my turn, I told the woman behind the protective glass that I needed to report a crime that had been committed. She asked what kind of crime I was reporting. "They drugged me," I said clearly and directly, "and they tried to steal from me. I have the recording of everything." She blinked at me, processing this information. "Do you know who did it? Can you identify the perpetrators?" "Yes," I said calmly. "My parents and my sister. It was my family." That's when she stopped blinking, when her expression changed completely. They gave me a chair in a quiet, private room with an officer who didn't ask intrusive questions about why I hadn't gone to the hospital first, or why I wasn't crying or more visibly upset. He just listened to me carefully and attentively. I played the audio clip I'd recorded for him, let him hear everything. He sat through the entire audio recording before finally speaking, before asking me any questions. "Do you realize what they were trying to do? Do you understand the full extent of this?" "Yeah," I replied calmly. "They were after my money. They were trying to steal from me." I forwarded him the complete audio file digitally, pointed out the specific timestamps of key moments, and walked him methodically through the activity logs on my banking app, showing him each failed attempt. He nodded frequently as I explained, jotted down some detailed notes on his pad, and typed carefully into a computer system that looked at least a decade out of date, possibly older. "This is serious," he said finally, looking up at me. "This is a serious criminal matter." I gave a small shrug, trying to process everything. "Yeah, it was serious. It is serious." He asked me several follow-up questions. If I was all right physically and emotionally, if I had a safe place to stay away from them, and whether I needed any kind of support services or resources. I told him honestly that I'd already left their house, that I had my own apartment, that I was safe. It was my first time ever filing a police report in my entire life. But surprisingly, I didn't feel afraid anymore. Not anymore. That fear had somehow evaporated. 2 days later, my phone buzzed nonstop, lighting up repeatedly. 3 separate messages and a voicemail, all arriving before noon even hit. The first message was from my mom. "Did you actually report your own family to the police? Your own flesh and blood?" Then, moments later, another message. "What is wrong with you? How could you do this?" I didn't respond to either message. I just stared at them. My sister left a voicemail next. Her voice sounded tight and strained, almost shaky with emotion or maybe anger. "It was just a mistake, a misunderstanding. You made it so much worse than it had to be. You could have just talked to us. Next came a call from my dad. I let it go directly to voicemail as well, not picking up. You think the cops will fix this situation, he said in the message, his voice harsh. You're going to destroy everything we've built as a family. You don't do this to your own people. Family doesn't turn on family like this. I texted back one single time, my only response to all of them. You drugged me. You tried to rob me while I was unconscious. That's not family. That's a felony. That's a crime. Then I blocked them systematically. All of them. Mom, Dad, my sister, group chats, every single contact associated with them, even the emergency bypass settings on my phone. I changed my phone number completely to a new one they wouldn't have. I rewrote my will and updated all my beneficiaries. I froze my credit just in case they tried something else, just as a precaution. I thought cutting ties completely would sting more than it did, that it would hurt deeper. But it didn't hurt the way I expected. Instead, it felt like I could finally breathe properly for the first time in years. Like a weight had been lifted off my chest. They didn't contest the charges against them. Not after the audio recording was presented as evidence, not after the bank login attempts synced perfectly with the timestamps on the recording. Not after the detective handling the case said firmly, "We can handle this the easy way or the hard way." The charges were substantial: attempted fraud, biometric misuse, conspiracy to commit theft, administering a substance without consent. All three of them charged together, all three of them complicit. The recording I'd made said everything I didn't have to say myself. It spoke for me, told the truth better than I ever could have in that moment. They got probation in the end. 1 year of supervised probation, substantial fines they had to pay, mandatory community service hours, and a strict no-contact order preventing them from reaching out to me. No prison time was imposed, but the stain on their records remained permanently. The damage to their reputations was done. I never reached out to them afterward, never asked how things ended up for them or how they were managing. But word finds you eventually, even when you don't go looking for it. Information has a way of traveling. A cousin on my dad's side of the family mentioned casually that they'd sold the house, the family home. Apparently it was due to mounting debt, accumulating legal fees from the case, and desperately trying to salvage whatever financial stability was left. No one in the extended family reacted publicly or took sides. There was just heavy silence surrounding the whole situation. Everyone knew, but no one spoke about it openly. As for my sister specifically, I saw her once completely by chance at a grocery store across town, far from where we used to live. She didn't notice me standing there in the next aisle. Or maybe she did notice and just kept facing the shelf deliberately like it held all the answers she needed, avoiding any confrontation. She was wearing a polo shirt and a work vest, the store's uniform, stacking paper towels methodically on the shelves, avoiding any eye contact with customers. I guess a career in finance wasn't the right fit after all, not with a criminal record for fraud attempts. I said nothing to her. I didn't approach or call out. I just paid for my groceries, my pasta and other items, and walked out of the store, quietly. Her boyfriend, Mark, was gone too, I heard. I learned that information from a mutual acquaintance we both knew. Not someone particularly close to either of us. Just someone who still keeps tabs on everyone's lives and shares information. Apparently, he moved out of her apartment just a few weeks after everything came to light publicly, after the charges were filed. No drama, no big confrontation. He just packed up his belongings quietly and disappeared from her life. Some things don't need lengthy explanations or justifications. They speak for themselves clearly enough. And me? I don't get texts asking for financial help anymore. No more requests for money. No more group chats with family drama. No more guilt served up and disguised as family duty or sisterly obligation. I work at my job. I sleep peacefully at night. I open my fridge and know with certainty that every single thing inside it was bought by me, for me with my own money. Nobody else had a claim to it. I thought Severing ties with my entire family would be harsh and painful, something that would haunt me. Instead, it felt clean, like a surgical cut that needed to happen, like closing a door that should have been closed years ago. So, what do you think about my story? Did I go too far in reporting my own family to the police, or did I not go far enough in protecting myself? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear your perspective on this situation. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you won't miss the next stories and updates. Hit that notification bell to stay connected.